Back in that bag again. Whoa, yeah. Hey. Back in that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Splash City Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hartman. Fun show today. I've got Kyle Waterworth, head girls basketball coach at St. Francis, joining me. We talk a lot about his transition from coaching boys to coaching girls. We talk about a little bit of the on-court differences, if there are any. We talk about building culture. And then there's also, a lot of discussion on just some of the challenges with participation numbers and coaching turnover within the girls basketball in the state and across the country. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And then Kyle will give us a report on his team, current state of things, how they're looking. They got a tough upcoming week with some key games ahead. So really excited for that. It's been another wonderful basketball weekend. Our local association had their home tournament, and that went off without any hitches. We had a great tournament for my son and his team. My other son's swim team. He set some personal bests this weekend, so it was a fun weekend. We had an upset. Wisconsin knocks out Michigan, so we'll expect to see Michigan drop down in my poll this coming week for college basketball. And the Timberwolves are in action. They lose yesterday to Cleveland after beating them earlier in the week. Defense fell apart a little bit for them. And then as I'm recording Sunday, they are ready to host the San Antonio Spurs. Dave, should be a great matchup on a Sunday night. So a lot of fun things to talk about today. Kyle Waterworth, guest from St. Francis Girls Basketball Program. If you're liking the podcast, make sure you subscribe, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, YouTube, leave a comment, leave some thoughts. Appreciate everyone listening. And with that, let's get into it. All right, today I'm excited to have St. Francis girls basketball coach Kyle Waterworth with me. Kyle's been on the sidelines at St. Francis for, I think it's 22, 23 years, something like that. Led the boys program for 7 years, was an assistant there for many years, teacher in the district, transitioned from the boys side to the girls side just this year. So I'm excited to talk about that a little bit. Kyle and I have known each other for, I think, almost 25 years now. Going back, I remember playing softball up in the Fargo-Moorhead area when we first met. So, Kyle, appreciate you joining the program. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk some basketball.
We had to do this in the winter because if we did the fall, you would have been in a deer stand, and I probably wouldn't. It would have been tough reception maybe, and the quality of the conversation might not have been as good.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of a simple guy. There's two things that dominate my free time, bow hunting and basketball. And the fall, they overlap. And like I mentioned before we started recording, I'd probably be a better basketball coach if I put more time into preparing, when I'm in the tree stand chasing deer around the woods. So
it gives you that moment of clarity. Sometimes we need that quiet to really laser focus. I think it's a good habit to be in. Everybody needs that moment. So
yeah, no, definitely a different change of pace.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to bring Kyle on for a bunch of reasons. Great teacher of the game. But transitioning from the boys side to the girls side was something I wanted to talk about. And I admittedly know more about the boys programs in Minnesota, having coached boys. I have a few more connections, but there's some interesting things happening on the girls side of basketball right now. Let's start with just, switching over to the girls side. Obviously, having daughters is a big driver of that, but kind of just talk about maybe that transition from boys to girls, maybe what you've seen this year and the difference. I know you've coached a little bit of girls in the spring, summer seasons as well, but what's been the biggest thing that you're kind of seeing differences from boys to girls?
I get that question a lot, and I wish I had a more exciting answer for you, but as far as basketball is concerned, there isn't a lot of difference. I think that me switching to girls was more kind of a set of circumstances. Being the boys coach and having two daughters was going to make it difficult to watch them play high school basketball. So it was more or less a family decision. I didn't want to be done coaching. I had a great staff on the boys side. he had a lot of continuity. We had some success. But I figured, if I step down, watch my kids play, I'd definitely have the opportunity to get back into it at some point if I wanted to. And I actually took a year off and got certified. I actually officiated a bunch of games, which was fun. I found a new appreciation for officials, being in the locker rooms at halftime. I had no idea what they did, but they took their craft serious. I mean, they're talking about calls, that could have maybe went the other way, and positioning and all these things. Like, as a coach for many years, I mean, I just appreciated the fact that they were really trying to hone their craft the way they were. And, I made sure to tell coaches, that, after being part of, it for a year. But our head coach here in St. Francis, Tavares Bennett, who you might recognize the name, he was a Gopher great and played professionally in Europe. He took the Totino Grace job, and so after a year off, I had this opportunity to slide back into coaching, and it was pretty seamless because, growing up, a lot of these girls that were, in the grades above and below my daughters were playing with them, and we were coaching them in the off season on travel teams and in the spring during AAU seasons. And, I have my 2 daughters, but my assistant coach, Rob Schoenrock, has 3 daughters that play for us. And my longtime assistant, Matt Norton, who has been with me for over 20 years, he actually has an 8th grade daughter that plays on our JV team. So it's not just my kids on the team. It's literally, I think we have six coaches' kids. And then my former JV coach on the boys side, his daughter, Maya, is a 9th grader for us. So we have a lot of coaches' kids in our program right now. So I don't think the switch was as big a deal as it maybe seemed like to, outsiders, just because most of these girls know all of us coaches, and we had been working with them since they were, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade when they started playing. So if anything, I mean, it's made for a pretty smooth transition.
Yeah. That's such a common theme. I mean, I talked to Kevin McKenzie, the head coach at Egan, the other day, and, he's coaching his kids. It just feels like something that as a coach, you want to be around the game and you don't care what level, you don't care what, boys or girls. And it's basketball. It's a simple game, right? Like, even we were talking in one of my other podcasts about levels, right? Like, the things you teach in like 6th grade, a lot of times are very similar to what you teach in high school, what they teach in college. The principles, the simplicity of the game transfers, and the coaching elements of it don't change. Just kind of maybe some of the speed, physicality, things like that might change a little bit depending on who you're coaching.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that a lot.
So one of the things, like, as you're coaching your kid, this is, again, a common theme from some of the last guests I've had, but how do you balance being a dad versus being the coach now that you're coaching your own kids? Because obviously I know you've done it, like you said, in other environments, but like, do you have set rules, like we're only going to do this in the car ride on the way home, or the bus ride, or like what do those kind of things look like with your daughters?
There have been moments where I've come home and there's something that I want to talk about, but I kind of made a pact with myself that I wasn't going to talk basketball unless it got brought up by them. Like, if they asked me a question and opened that door. So there's been a lot of times where, I'll just leave it be until we get to practice or the film room or the next time that, it comes up. But even going back before I even took the job, one of the first things I did was ask them if, they wanted me to, apply for the job, like, and if they were adamant that they didn't want me to do that, I wasn't going to do it. So after getting their blessing, I applied for it and obviously got it. But I would say that, I let them be kids. I mean, I'm not talking basketball with them at home very often, unless, like I said, unless they brought it up. During practice, I don't treat them any different than I would any other player. I told them at the beginning of the season going into this whole thing, if anything, I'm probably going to be a little harder on them than others. There's going to be no favoritism, and I think that's kind of obvious to those who, play on our team and have watched us play. That I'm pretty hard on them, and they knew that going in. But so I think just having a clear understanding of, when it's basketball, we're coach and you're player, and when we're at home, I'm dad and you're my kid. So I think just being able to realize that, those lines don't always have to cross is important.
Did you always have that, or was there moments where there was frustration on their part of how that was being handled in a basketball setting, where you had to kind of explain, at practice or in these games, this is what I have to do, and here's why I have to do it this way? Did they have to understand that?
Like, what do you mean? I guess I'm not understanding 100%.
Well, so I sometimes feel like in my experiences, my son doesn't quite get why I'm harder on him. Because you don't want that perception of giving favoritism to your own kid. So you almost go the other way, and not intentionally, but maybe subconsciously, you're a little harder on them. So I've had to explain to him that relationship, and it doesn't always sink in.
Yeah, and I think it's not only the fact that, Chloe, for instance, I'll use her as an example. She's a freshman and she's starting. So it's not only that she's my daughter, but she's younger than some of the people that she's playing ahead of. So, I told her that, from a playing perspective, you gotta be, good in practice. You gotta work hard. You gotta be coachable, because you have to earn that spot. And, so we had those conversations. I think they're old enough where they understand that. We also have a great dynamic. I couldn't have asked for a better situation to step into as a first-year coach. Tavares did a great job kind of getting them to the point where they are, and Rob Schoenrock was a big part of that as well. He's a holdover from last year's staff, and he's our JV coach this year. The girls have been accepting of me. We have an 8th grader, and some underclassmen that play significant minutes. And we also have a good balance of seniors too. We have 5 seniors that are all great human beings and great teammates. And, it could be, it could be ugly, older girls not accepting the younger girls, but I haven't got any sense that that's even an issue for us. And I think that's a big reason why we're having the success that we are too. We all realize that we're important to doing this thing. So I'm grateful for that. And those conversations were had with my kids, to get back to your original questions. And I think they'll understand, why to outsiders looking in, that I might need to be a little harder on them than others. So, but to this point, it hasn't been an issue that I'm aware of.
Good. Yeah, that you're aware of. Let's keep it that way. Let's talk a little bit, as you're talking about your team, I think this is a good point to just, briefly talk about your season so far, if you don't mind. Just, we don't have to launch any trade secrets or anything about the St. Francis girls, but how's the season going? What's the outlook in the conference, the section? Who are some of the other players and teams, kids to watch?
Well, I'll start with us. Like I mentioned a moment ago, I stepped into a pretty good situation. The cupboard wasn't bare, I guess you could say. Last year, our girls won 18 games. They lost. They lost in the section semifinals to a Monticello team who up till that point was undefeated and one of the favorites to win it all. Going into this year, we kind of beefed up our schedule a little bit. We picked up some 4As. We're playing Providence Academy this week, the 4-time defending champs, to try and battle test us a bit. And, my thought process was, we won 18 games. For us to take the next step, we're going to have to play some better teams and challenge ourselves. And, at this point, I think we're beating the teams that we should. There's been a few games where we've played some opponents where, they're good teams and, matched us pretty well. And, we dropped a few of those games, Spring Lake Park right off the tip of the season. Our first game, we played them and they started the season 8-0 and we lost. I think it was 3 or 4 points. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that was one of those games where there were some tough lessons to be learned. We turned the ball over too much. I think it was 27 turnovers and we didn't make our free throws and we lost by 3. We played well enough to win, but we just didn't do the little things well. And we dropped another one to Legacy, the second game, and that's a team that, has some talent, and we didn't play our best. And so after a slow start, I think we've won 8 of our last 10, if I recall correctly. We had a nice win over Andover, who's a bigger school that has some talent. I think their sophomore big has an Ohio State offer, and we held her to half of her average. So it was fun to kind of watch our girls execute a defensive, plan and hold someone who's going places to half of her average and pull out a win. So I think we're trending in the right direction. This coming week is going to be huge for us. We play Monticello, who bumped up to 4A this year, so they're no longer in our section, but they still are probably the team to beat in our conference. And they're 11-3. They return their whole lineup. I think they play 8 seniors, and 4 or 5 of them are going to play at colleges next year, and couple at one of them for sure at the Division I level. I think they got a couple girls playing Division II. So we're gonna have our hands full, and I'm excited. And one of the goals I had for our team this year was to kind of change the way we think about ourselves. We had an 18-win season. We have girls on our team who will play at the next level. Like, we are one of those teams. But I didn't get the vibe last year, as a fan on the outside looking in and talking to some of these girls, that they viewed themselves like that. And, when we scheduled some of these tougher teams, I mean, they kind of, I don't want to use the word, that we're scared, but, they noticed. And I was like, we belong in these games, and I think next week will be one of those opportunities for us to prove that we belong in those conversations with some of those best teams. So I'm eager to see how we respond to Monticello, and then 2 days later playing Providence.
Yeah, and then finishing it off with looks like Chisago Lakes. So a 3-game week for you guys next week.
Correct. Yeah, it'll be kind of one of those weeks where we got to be ready to play, and hopefully the things go our way. And regardless, I think it's going to be an important week for us from like a learning standpoint. We're going to find out a little bit more about who we are. I know we're going to be in tough situations and how we respond to those, good or bad. I mean, I think we're going to be able to build off of and learn from. We're going to be better because of this week, moving forward.
Yeah, it's kind of getting that time of year, right, where you're probably about 6 weeks out from tournament. Maybe not even that, maybe 5 weeks out from tournament. Yeah, so you're kind of like, all right, let's start fine tuning and see what we got here. So that's exciting. How about you said Monticello moved out of the section? Who else is in your section that you think has a contend?
Totino Grace is in our section, and also Becker, and Becker's kind of been a powerhouse in the girls' side for the last few years. And I'd like to think that, we're in the conversation, with those teams. Annandale is new.
Okay.
But then a lot of our conference teams are also in our section. So we have like Big Lake, Zimmerman are also in there. Fridley is in our section. They're not in our conference. Trying to think who else is there off the top of my head. Um, give me a moment. I think that's most of them, but I'm forgetting one. I know Princeton.
Well, we'll be keeping an eye
Prince,
on that Thursday game against Providence for sure. That'll be a fun game, and Monticello, of course. But Madden Greenway alone has a gravitational pull of attention, I think, when it comes to girls basketball in the state of Minnesota.
yeah, and what people don't realize is not just her. Like her younger sister is a heck of a player, and then they have a third guard whose name is Ella, and I'm not exactly sure of how to pronounce her last name, but I just watched them yesterday play Rochester Lords, who was I think number 5 in 2A, and they blew the doors off of them. And we can maybe talk about that a little later, but yeah, it's not just Madden that they have. They have a few other nice pieces as well.
Yeah, they've got something going over there for the last, what'd you say, 4 straight titles, and
yeah, that's kind of unheard of
down this year. Yeah. I wanted to pivot a little bit to something that you had brought up, but I also saw in I think it was a Star Tribune article about the coaching turnover in high school sports in Minnesota. And I think there was some article, I want to say it was 70% of girls coaches had turned over in all sports in the last year or something.
Yeah.
And I think you had mentioned something about girls basketball coach turnover too, and longevity being a concern. What do you think is driving that, if you have any idea, or what are you hearing about the challenges specifically on the girls side? I'm sure there's other challenges on the boys side as well, but it seems to be a larger issue on the girls side of athletics.
I mean, we could talk about this the whole time if you wanted to, but it's a big topic. On the boys side, there was, within our conference, I can obviously only speak to my experience. There were a lot of longer tenured coaches, and we played each and every year. When we played Cambridge Isani, I pulled out the, Coach McDonald file, and I knew what they were going to be doing. They knew what we were going to be doing. And it was the same for Princeton with Coach Cloutier, that we knew what we were getting when we went there, and vice versa. We're talking coaches who had been around for a long, long time and do a great job with their programs, and year in and year out are always competitive. And stepping into the girls' side, I think just our conference alone, I think 5 of the 9 coaches are new this year or last year, and I'm obviously one of them. So there isn't that opportunity for those programs, I guess you could say, to build. And culture isn't built overnight. It's something that takes years to build, sometimes moments to destroy. And I think, all good programs have a good relationship with their youth, and they're using their youth kind of as a feeder to their high school program. So that connection, that momentum that you build with the youth doesn't happen overnight. We're talking years. And if you're only there for a cup of coffee, you lose that relationship, and sometimes it, kind of disappears on you. And I think there are programs that are dealing with that. I know that's one thing here in St. Francis that I've always been fortunate enough to have, is a strong youth program. On the boys' side and also the girls' side. And I mean, just yesterday we were running a K-3 basketball camp, we had our high school players there running drills and playing games to try and not only get some of those girls to be basketball players and enjoy the opportunity, but also because we know it's necessary. If you're going to be successful in 10 years, you got to get them playing, in those grade school years.
Right.
So I'm trying to think what your original question was here. 'Cause I feel like I went astray, but
all good.
Turnover?
Turnover with coach. Is it parents? Is it administration changes? Is it just challenges of the jobs today that are different?
Well, it's a demanding job. I mean, I want to say that I probably put as much or more time into coaching than I do, teaching, and I take pride in doing both, but it's a demanding job. And, head coaches make $6,000 to $8,000 a year, and I'm putting in 40, 50 hour weeks on the basketball side of things, and you don't do it because you're getting paid well. You do it because it's a calling and you love to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the demands of the job, if you're doing it right, you're watching film, you're planning practices, you're doing team building activities, you're meeting with and talking with boosters, you're, coaching practice, you have your games, there's the bus rides to and from. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of time that goes into it, and not everyone has the opportunity or the schedule to allow them to do it. So, I mean, if you don't have the schedule, I mean, as a teacher, I go from like teaching to practice, and our school day ends at, I think the high school ends at like 2:30ish. So we start practice at 2:45. I mean, unless you own your own business, can you get to a 2:30 practice if you're not a teacher?
Right.
So a job change might be the reason why someone has to get out of coaching. But then I think there's the outside influences, like, parent pressure. I haven't dealt with that on a major level. Like, I haven't felt a lot of parent pressure here in St. Francis, which I'm very grateful for because I've heard stories. But that's a factor, and then, you have some coaches have got out of it because of, the transfer thing and, not being able to field competitive teams because, you have a couple good players coming through and they end up leaving. I mean, who wants to
Mm-hmm.
essentially raise these players to a varsity level and then watch them go play for somebody else? I mean, that's discouraging. On the girls' side, statewide, we're dealing with declining numbers, so that maybe factors into some of this too. So there's a lot of reasons. I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah. I hadn't heard about the decline in participation. Is that like relatively new and what do you think about that? Because I feel like, you go like youth sports as a racket. There's tournaments, there's all this stuff. So it feels like there's tons of playing. Maybe it's the same 40 kids on every tournament, but you know what I mean? Like I just didn't have that perception that the girls basketball side had so much declining in participation.
Well, there's a couple of things that the girls' side deals with that the boys don't. Well, I think one of them is the growth of dance. Dance is huge.
Okay.
In St. Francis, I want to say there's 70, 80 girls at the high school level that try out for the dance team. That's a huge number.
Okay.
There's also club volleyball, so if you're someone whose number one sport is volleyball, a lot of those girls want to play volleyball, and you can't play club volleyball, or at least it takes a huge commitment to play club volleyball and also be a committed high school basketball player because those schedules overlap. So unless you're willing to miss, some club volleyball to participate in basketball, which a lot of those ladies aren't, that's eating into some of the girls that could potentially be basketball players for you. And
Gotcha.
so I would say those are two of the big factors
Yeah.
that play into it. We're just competing for kids, and there's more opportunities for kids to do all types of different things. Like, kids have never been busier, in a lot of ways. There's opportunities for them to do, volleyball, softball's a big thing right now. Like, club softball is growing. We had a middle school girl who played as a fourth and fifth grader, but she gave up basketball, and she was one of our better youth players because she's on this traveling softball team that plays on the weekends all over the country. I mean, there's all types of things that didn't exist when you and I were growing up that do now, that are eating into, why some of these girls aren't playing.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. In my mind, that I feel bad about that. Like we all talk about multi-sport athletes and even a lot of coaches will, but then when it comes time to make choices, they're like, you kind of focus and the specialization. I know that's a big topic, but I know a few girls as well who drop basketball because they're doing they're doing JO volleyball. So like that's a thing, right? It's just I feel like it's too bad. Like at some point, kids if they want to play,
Right.
and
And I think
there's plenty of year, but yeah,
the misunderstanding I think that some parents have is you need to specialize to reach the next level. Like
yeah,
if your son or daughter has aspirations of playing college sports, they're not going to be negatively impacted if they play soccer and basketball or volleyball and basketball. Um, Colleges are going to find those kids. And just going back on my experience with my players, with the exception of one, all of my college, players that went on to play at the next level were multi-sport athletes. I think bad Jake Johnson, who played for us in 2014, he was a football basketball guy. Wyatt Schroeder, who went on to play football at the University of Minnesota, he was a football basketball guy. Blake Marino, who played at Mankato State, he was a football basketball guy. Matthew Bothan, growing up, played football, but he didn't in high school. So, I mean, as a youth, he was a multi-sport athlete. But then I think like Caleb Schoenrock, he ran cross country and did track and played basketball. Ethan Shearing was a football basketball guy. Hunter Troutman played football, basketball, and baseball and went on to be Northern State's best quarterback. So, I mean, I could literally go on and on and on and on about all these players. Yeah. It wasn't like the specialization. It was the fact that they were a good athlete. They knew how to compete. Yeah, they're usually better at one sport than the other, but that doesn't mean they can't play both. And
right.
I've been a staunch advocate of multi-sport athletes because in St. Francis, our best athletes, if our best football players only play football, okay, we're not going to be any good in basketball. And vice versa. Right. That door swings both ways. Like we need to share our athletes because we don't have the numbers that some of these other schools do. We need to share our best athletes if we're going to be competitive. And I think it's healthy. Like I think you make friends, you have these relationships that are going to, last the rest of your life. When you're our age, Steve, no one remembers how many points you scored, but you do remember you do remember like who treated you well, who was fun to be around. Like, you remember the experience and you remember the people. And I think they're just losing out on that by, not being involved in it. And for most of these kids, it's a 4-year window. Like they're going to play high school sports for 4 years. And after that, they're going to look back and, if they're anything like me, I wish I would have played football my senior year. Like, so just being involved and being a part of it, I think is important. And I just hope that maybe there's a parent that listens to this podcast that realizes that giving up soccer or giving up basketball for, to play another isn't going to affect anything in the long run.
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, it, I see it already with my kids and just like the time, and you gotta, everybody feels like, well, I can't miss this season or this 3-month window, or maybe I won't be on that team next year. And I do think a lot of it is people feel like I'm investing this time and money and I need a return at some point, when really it should be I'm investing this time because my kid is happy and having fun and doing
exactly it. I mean, I've lost players to basketball players to club sports because parents pay however many thousands of dollars to be on that team. They feel like they need to be there to make that worth it, right? And I get that. It's not cheap to have your kids play, but we shouldn't be making those decisions. We shouldn't be stealing from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
I think there's just so much value in multi-sport because of the different body movements, the different techniques, the different things, like baseball, right? Hand-eye coordination. Track, it's like, speed and agility. And football, it's physicality, and all that stuff plays into basketball in different ways. I had a buddy, I think Eric Quackenbush. he always
Yeah.
talked about like hips, like his hips, because he played football. He felt like he had better, like, lower body strength, and he could like get better leverage in different situations as a point guard attacking the hoop because he had, this technique in football. And I think all of that stuff just plays into it. Not to, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but it is too bad. Like, I just, I hope for my kids and anybody who wants, like, just let them play the things they want to do. And, it ain't gonna ruin their
Right.
life.
And it's not only the physical aspect too, like the mental aspect
Yeah.
of it.
Right.
I had a player, well, Caleb Schoenrock, who's playing at the NDSU right now. He was a walk on there he was going into his senior year. He ran cross country for the first time, and he would not have been the player he was his senior year on the basketball court if it wasn't for cross country. He came into camp so, like dialed, but he was in great shape. Like, he did not get tired. And his motor, his senior year was unreal. Like, he broke the rebounding record that had stood since the 70s at our school. I mean, I don't think he's able to play the way he did if he wasn't, in such great shape. And I attribute that to him running cross country. Like, what better sport, to get yourself in
Yeah.
shape than cross country, right? And
Mhm.
I think that's just one example of a player benefiting from doing something else. And not only
Yeah.
that, but I think you like learn different roles. Like, you might not be the best cross country runner, so you learn to be a good teammate. Okay, you learn to compete. Same thing. If you're a baseball player, like there's things there where maybe you're a pitcher. Like, I've had a few basketball players that were good pitchers. That's a demanding position in that sport. So the mental fortitude it takes to battle back when you have guys in scoring position and you're down in the count. Like,
Yeah.
talk about implementing next play mentality, right?
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of benefits. We could probably go on maybe a separate show just on specialization. That'd be a long one. Um, cool. Well, I think this conversation is like you had mentioned. I hope there's a parent out there that's what this whole podcast is about. Basketball fans, but coaches, parents, even if players want to listen, like that's why I started this. And I think you brought up some great points, and just give people something to think about, because I think there is a lot of demands and pressures on kids these days, and really it's just you know everybody's a little bit different. But man, it's good to play a couple different sports, enjoy the game of basketball, enjoy other things though, right? Like, there's just a lot of things that can make kids happy, and then they come back refreshed and recharged. I think if they, like you said, take a break, run cross country,
Yeah.
do something else.
Yep.
So, all right, well, I think we'll wrap there, Kyle. This was super fun. Thank you for coming on. Big week ahead for your girls. Good luck the rest of the way. Maybe we'll catch you like maybe before tournament time or something, and check in and see how you guys are doing.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And hopefully, yeah, maybe we'll do it again and talk about a few of the other things that impact basketball. I was kind of nervous that you were going to ask me about like college basketball or NBA, because I had a buddy who I used to coach with. He's like, "Hey, did you see this game?" And I was like, "I watch high school girls basketball now."
Yeah.
Because if I'm at home, I'm usually watching a game film or catching a live stream, just because I've always wanted to be someone who's prepared for who we play, and I'm trying to acclimate myself to the girls' side, and I'm kind of drinking by the fire hose just because I'm not as familiar, this being my first year, and so you left me off the hook, but
yeah, I did. I've learned my lesson. I've interviewed some high school coaches, and what I learned, I used to do both, right? High school, and you'd prepare and you do all this stuff, and then you didn't have kids, so you'd stay up till 1 a.m. and you'd watch a NBA game or something out west. Uh, and now I'm like, with kids, I know how this goes, man. We are locked on what we got to get done, what we have to take care of, and anything else is
right.
gravy. You don't have time for
I'm
it.
I'm still
So,
trying to squeeze in a Wolves game here and there, but that's probably about it. I check the Gophers scores, but I don't get to watch as much college basketball as I would like to. Obviously
yeah,
once our high school season ends, I'll probably change that. But
yeah,
yeah, right now it's all kind of high school girls basketball for me.
yeah. Well, college is kind of my jam, right? So I will just plug that this is outside of all the NIL transfer portal G League players playing, which is nuts. Just in terms of the game, this year's college basketball season is outstanding and super fun to follow. So just gonna throw that
Well,
out
that's
there
good to hear
if you get a
because
minute.
yeah, that's good to hear because I feel like it's hard to be a fan these days just because
Yeah,
of all the changes from year to year. Like I don't even know who's playing where.
yeah, yeah. It's tough. There's some teams like Purdue's done it right. Like they've kept their three
Yep.
big horses for the last 4 years. Yeah. Otherwise, it's kind of rare to do that in today's game. But you know, it's the
So
quality of
who's
the
the team to
game.
beat in college basketball this year, you think?
Oh, dude, it is. I think there's 10 legitimate teams.
Really? That'll make for a fun
Yeah, like
tournament.
oh, it's going to be awesome. Not only that, but you have old players like Braden Smith, the guys at Purdue, and then you got these freshmen who are unreal. AJ DeBanza, Boozer, Houston's Kingston Flemings. It's just awesome. Arizona's
Yeah.
got two. It's Darren Peterson at Kansas is hardly playing, but when he does, I think the other day he scored 32 points in 32 minutes. I mean, he's just unreal. So
Wow.
it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's a long list. It's fun too. Like Vanderbilt's undefeated. They beat Alabama the other day. Nebraska's undefeated. They've taken down some good Big Ten teams, and so it's a wild season for sure. I'm actually going to be on a Timberwolves podcast tonight after the Spurs game, so that'll be fun too. Like
Oh yeah.
it's
Which
it's a
podcast is
great
that?
time of year. Andrew Dukowitz with he writes for Zone Coverage and he does the Missing Wolves podcast. It's called. So
Okay.
little post game breakdown. I've had to, like I said, I'm a little more into college, so I've been watching a lot more NBA. But it's great. This has always been a great basketball state, great basketball area. It's just that our college and pro teams sucked for 25 years, and now when they're
We're so
relevant,
thirsty for a winner.
oh, so ready. So
Yeah.
it's a great, and
Well,
we got great high school basketball players and coaches, and which feeds it, right? Like that's the thing
right.
is our high school level's always been great, and now hopefully our with St. Thomas being in the mix, it helps I think too with college interest in the town. So um,
Yeah,
that's a fun program to
I
watch.
think Coach Tower does a great job, and they're gonna be a problem, and they're gonna be one of those schools on the rise.
Yeah,
They obviously already are.
yeah. NDSU too. Your boy Caleb Schoenrock. They won on a buzzer beater yesterday, and they are right there. Next weekend, they St. Thomas goes up to Fargo, and that's
That'll be a
gonna be an
good
awesome
game.
game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So
I might have to see
all
if I
right,
can. I'm trying to think what I do next week. Maybe go to that.
yeah, absolutely, man. It was great to have you. We could talk ball all the time, any day. But yeah, good luck the rest of the way, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate Kyle joining today. That was a super fun conversation. Just loving these coaching conversations that I'm having with these guys. And, just kind of talking about challenges and exciting things happening with their program and just learning more about how they've developed their coaching pedigree and who they've learned from. So hope you're enjoying them as well. I know this will come out afterwards, but if you listen after the Wolves Spurs game Sunday night, make sure you check out the Missing Wolves podcast. I'll be on there with Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage talking post-game Wolves Spurs, which should be a great game. Wolves need a bounce back win, try to get back to within a game of the Spurs in the Western Conference. So check that out if you have time. Andrew does a great job. Really fun post-game conversation and with chat and questions coming in. So it's a super fun listen if you have a chance to do that. Otherwise, as always, appreciate listening. Follow us on Instagram, follow on YouTube, subscribe, smash that like button. I think that's the first time I've said that in this podcast history, and now I cringe. My apologies. But again, thanks for listening. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.